A cocky thug on a motorcycle came speeding by, mocking and then kicking hard at the guide dog of a blind man, treating it as a cheap joke. Little did he know he had just made a fatal mistake. That dog was not an ordinary pet. It was a trained K9 warrior, trained to protect its owner at all costs. And this time, the troublemaker would pay dearly. Where are you watching this story from? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next thrilling content. Glendale, a fresh morning, with soft golden sunlight spreading over every street corner. The air was calm, only interrupted by the soft murmur of customers in a small coffee shop, a place where locals often stop by to enjoy a fresh start to their day. Sitting at an outdoor table, Derek Williams, a blind African-American man, gently touched the rim of his hot coffee cup, feeling the warmth spread from his palm. Derek was familiar with this place, partly because of the rich coffee aroma he loved, and partly because it was where he could feel a sense of the world around him. Beside him, Titan, a large German shepherd with sleek black and brown fur, sat silently, yet with an air of authority. To those around him, Titan was just a loyal guide dog, but its past was far from ordinary. Before becoming Derek's eyes, Titan had been a K9 working dog, undergoing harsh training, participating in dangerous missions, and being honed to protect. Now, it no longer served on the battlefield, but the instincts of a warrior had never left it. Derek slowly took a sip of his coffee, savoring the subtle bitterness on his tongue. Everything seemed peaceful, but that peace would not last long. The peaceful morning atmosphere was shattered by the harsh roar of motorcycle engines, the sound thundering like a storm striking the road, disrupting the quiet of the streets. The customers, leisurely enjoying their coffee, looked up, some of them furrowing their brows at the unusual noise. 3 large motorcycles sped into the parking lot right in front of the cafe, their wheels screeching on the pavement before coming to a stop. The man in the lead, riding a sleek black Harley-Davidson, stepped off with an unmistakable presence, Travis T-Bone Miller. He was tall, with solid muscular build, a man familiar with violence. His messy blonde hair partially obscured a sharp face, and his arm displayed tattoos in a webbed pattern, telling stories that only those living on the fringes of the law could understand. Behind him were Jake and Ryan, 2 lackeys with cocky attitudes, wearing shabby black leather jackets, with black vultures emblazoned across their backs, the identifying mark of a notorious local biker gang. Travis pulled a cigarette from his jacket pocket, lighting it with a practiced flick of his fingers, then tilted his head, scanning the surroundings. He relished this feeling, the sensation of controlling the space, a silent dominance that no one had to verbalize, yet everyone understood. Then his gaze locked onto a figure in the corner of the cafe. Titan. The German shepherd sat motionless by Derek's side like a steel statue, but its eyes told a different story, sharp, dangerous, like a storm waiting to unleash beneath the calm exterior. Travis smirked and exhaled a thin cloud of smoke before sneering. "That's a big dog," he said. He wasn't complimenting it. Titan didn't react immediately, but its body tensed, ready to spring. Derek couldn't see it, but he could feel the shift in Titan. His instincts, honed over years of living in the shadows, alerted him that something was wrong. Titan moved closer, as if positioning itself to create an invisible barrier between Derek and Travis. Travis stubbed out his cigarette, slid both hands into his jacket pockets, and walked slowly toward them. The customers in the cafe watched silently, some keeping their distance, all sensing the unsettling energy that this man brought with him. "You know," Travis spoke slowly, almost casually, "I've always had a thing for dogs." Jake chuckled, while Ryan nudged him, as if encouraging the upcoming performance. Derek tilted his head slightly, his voice low yet calm. "What do you want?" Travis grinned. "Nothing. I just find it interesting when a dog is so well taken care of." He leaned forward, extending his hand intentionally, as though to touch Titan. Immediately, Titan's fur bristled, eyes flashing with warning, a low growl emanating from deep in its throat. Not loud, but enough for any smart person to understand that this wasn't a situation to continue. Travis paused for a moment. His overconfidence made him believe he could control any dog, but the instant he saw the lethal gaze in Titan's eyes, he knew. This was no ordinary dog. The way Titan didn't bark, didn't panic, but remained still like a blade poised to strike. That wasn't the reaction of a mere dog, but of a warrior trained to neutralize a threat in an instant. Derek couldn't see it, but he could feel it. "Tighten up, Titan." Titan didn't move, but the growl continued to grow. Travis licked his lips, unbothered, but something wasn't right. A forced laugh came from Jake, breaking the silence. "Travis, are you being trained by a dog?" The words, like a spark, made Travis's eyes darken. He couldn't let himself be humiliated in front of his underlings, couldn't allow a dog to undermine his status, especially not a blind man overshadowing him. No one in the cafe realized that, at that moment, a storm was officially beginning to form. A storm not just between a man and a dog, but the spark of an unavoidable conflict. Travis slowly withdrew his hand, but the smile never left his face. "It's fine, I'm just getting to know you." He shot one last glance at Titan, then turned and walked away. But even after he left, Titan's growl didn't cease. Derek felt Titan's heartbeat still pounding, something that rarely happened. He gently touched Titan's thick fur on its neck. "You feel something's wrong, don't you?" Titan didn't answer, but there was no need to speak. Derek understood. Because for the first time in years, Titan kept its gaze fixed on Travis, even after he had left. As if it knew that this encounter was just the beginning of something much worse. Travis didn't return to the table immediately. He stood there, his eyes sharp as knives, scanning every slight movement of Titan, as though searching for a weakness. He wasn't the type of person to easily let go when his pride was wounded, especially not in front of a dog and a blind man. He smirked, casting a meaningful glance at Jake and Ryan, then suddenly waved his hand in front of Titan, a gesture full of challenge and provocation. "Is it really as smart as it looks?" Jake and Ryan burst into laughter, their voices echoing through the stillness of the cafe, where everyone was trying not to be too obvious, but still watching every development. Titan remained motionless. It didn't react the way normal dogs would, no barking, no panic. Only the faint twitch of its ears, a subtle sign that only those familiar with working dogs would recognize. It wasn't provoked, but it was assessing the threat. Derek didn't need to see it to know what Titan was doing. His hand gently rested on the thick fur on Titan's neck, feeling every muscle tense, like a string pulled to its breaking point. "Titan, you good?" Derek's voice was calm, still maintaining his composed demeanor. Titan moved closer to him, a gesture not just seeking protection, but also a silent warning. Travis lowered his hand, but his gaze still burned with barely concealed annoyance. The tension escalated when Jake, with his usual impulsiveness, taunted, "Travis, are you scared of a dog?" The words weren't just a joke, but a jab at the pride of someone like Travis. He narrowed his eyes, glancing around at the people nearby. Some of the cafe's patrons had started turning to look, a few even secretly pulling out their phones, probably to record whatever happened next. He knew this, and he hated it. He couldn't let himself be seen as inferior in front of a dog, in front of his subordinates, in front of a blind man. He licked his lips, pulling out another cigarette from his jacket pocket, but this time he didn't light it immediately. He stood there as if weighing something in his mind. Titan kept staring at him, its eyes devoid of fear, not blinking even once. There was something in that gaze that made Travis uneasy. He tried to dismiss it, but deep down, he knew Titan wasn't an ordinary dog. Unlike the other dogs he'd encountered, those that panicked or reacted too quickly when provoked, Titan remained still, yet didn't seem weak. It was patient like a predator, and that made him uneasy. Travis turned his head, exhaling a short breath, then looked at Derek. "You sure? Your friend doesn't have a problem with me." His tone seemed playful, but underneath it carried a subtle threat. Derek didn't seem worried, only tilting his head slightly, his voice deep and calm. "Titan doesn't have a problem with you, unless you do something stupid." A deadly silence filled the room. No one in the cafe dared speak, all of them feeling that this situation could escalate at any moment. Travis bit his lip, gripping the cigarette tightly. Part of him wanted to prove something, but another part realized there was something very different about this dog. It didn't cower or bark wildly like the dogs he'd faced before. It just sat there, staring at him, evaluating him, waiting for him to make a mistake. Travis didn't know much about working dogs, but his instincts told him that if he crossed the line he wouldn't have time to regret it. But he couldn't back down. He couldn't let Jake and Ryan see him yield. He couldn't let the strangers in the cafe think he was a coward afraid of a dog. He turned back, tilting his chin toward Titan, his voice this time full of defiance. "I don't think it's that scary." Derek gently placed his hand on Titan's back. Titan didn't move, but its breathing was steady and deeper, a sign that it was preparing for something. Travis noticed this, and for some reason he felt a cold shiver run down his spine. But instead of stepping back, he sneered, turned away and shrugged as if nothing had happened. "Relax, I'm just joking." He returned to his table, but didn't take his eyes off Derek and Titan. Jake was still chuckling, but Ryan, more perceptive, eyed Travis suspiciously. "You okay?" Ryan asked quietly, but Travis didn't answer right away. He only silently gritted his teeth, his gaze still fixed on Titan. No, this wasn't over. Titan might be a smart dog, but Travis wasn't the type to let a dog embarrass him. He took a sip of his cold coffee, the corner of his lips curling up. He had a plan, and next time, it wouldn't be this easy. On the other side, Titan kept its gaze on Travis, its eyes darkening as if it had already anticipated what was about to happen. And it knew this wasn't over. Travis leaned back in his chair, stirring his cigarette in his hand as though everything was just a harmless joke, but deep inside, his rage was boiling. No one, especially a blind man and his dog, had ever made him feel so humiliated. The giggles of Jake and Ryan, while seemingly supportive, made Travis realize they were waiting for something more. They wanted to see him take control back, to see him assert his dominance over anyone who dared challenge him. He couldn't let this end like that. He couldn't let a dog look at him with a defiant gaze as though it knew exactly what kind of person he was. He couldn't let Derek, a man who couldn't see the world around him, make him feel like he was no longer in control. Without hesitation, Travis kicked a chair near Titan with all his strength, sending it crashing to the ground with a loud clatter that echoed through the cafe. The atmosphere immediately froze. In an instant, Titan sprang to his feet, his body taut like a bowstring ready to snap, muscles rippling and moving with such speed and power that it was as if a fight instinct had been triggered. No longer was he simply a guide dog. He was a warrior, ready to take down any threat in his path. A low, sharp growl rumbled from Titan's throat. Not loud, but powerful enough for anyone familiar with working dogs to recognize. This was the final warning. Travis felt his heart race as he met Titan's gaze, a look not just of an animal reacting to provocation, but of a creature with intelligence, discipline, the ability to assess a situation and choose the proper course of action. In that moment, Travis realized Titan wasn't seeing him as an equal, but as a target to be dealt with if the boundaries were pushed any further. The cafe's atmosphere thickened with an absolute silence, and people around began turning their heads, their eyes filled with a mix of worry and tension at the scene unfolding. A sharp, furious voice broke the oppressive silence. "Stop it now!" A woman with brown hair tied up stood up, her eyes filled with anger as she stared at Travis. Her voice rang clear and strong, enough to make several others in the cafe look at him warily. "What do you think you're doing?" Travis squinted, unaccustomed to being openly challenged like that, especially by a complete stranger. "Relax, it's just a joke," he shrugged, trying to act indifferent, but his voice was strained, his earlier confidence fading. "That's not a joke, that's harassment," the woman continued, her voice devoid of fear, sharp and cold. "Do you have a problem with people?" Travis looked around, as if just realizing that he was surrounded by disapproving stares. Some people in the cafe had taken out their phones, clearly recording the entire scene, ready to turn him into an internet disgrace. The discomfort surged within him, like a suppressed wave ready to break free. He felt cornered, a feeling he had never enjoyed. He wasn't afraid, but he understood this wasn't the right time to keep pushing the issue. He had gone too far, at least in a public place like this. He gritted his teeth, trying to suppress the anger boiling inside, then took a step back, pretending nothing serious had happened. "Not worth it," he muttered under his breath, his voice low and full of frustration. Jake and Ryan, sensing the situation had turned against them, quickly got up and followed, but none of them really wanted to leave this way. Just before Travis completely turned away, he suddenly stopped, looked at Titan, then at Derek, his eyes carrying an unspoken promise. The hatred had been formed, and it wouldn't end soon. Titan didn't take his eyes off him, his breath steady, muscles still taut, and in that moment, Derek felt the intense alertness from Titan, unlike anything before. Travis smirked, but this time, his smile wasn't just a provocation, it was real danger. "I'll remember you, old friend." And then he turned and walked away, his steps slow but deliberate, as if he wanted everyone to remember this moment. No one in the cafe moved immediately. The space was still thick with tension, as though everyone was waiting for something to explode. Derek took a slow breath, his hand quietly stroking Titan's back, feeling the tension in the dog's muscles, a sign that the danger hadn't passed. He didn't need to see to know that Titan was still watching Travis, even as he left the cafe. Because Derek understood one thing. This wasn't over. Titan had sensed the threat, and his instincts had never been wrong. Derek left the cafe with Titan, but even though no one was following, he could still feel eyes from a distance watching him, an invisible yet heavy presence like a ghost creeping through the air. Titan walked beside him with a firmer stance than usual, its footsteps steady and slow, as if each step had a purpose, as if it were checking every hidden corner on their way home. The street at night wasn't exactly quiet, but in the light breeze passing through the buildings, there was an unusual feeling that Derek couldn't explain. Titan noticed it too. It no longer walked in its usual rhythm. Instead, it would occasionally look back. Its ears perked up as if listening for something Derek couldn't hear. When they reached their small apartment, Derek opened the door, letting Titan enter first. But instead of going inside like it usually did, Titan stopped at the threshold, turning its head back toward the dark street behind them, alert with every breath. "Titan, come inside," Derek urged. It hesitated for a moment before slowly stepping inside, but Derek could feel the tension in its every movement. He shut the door and locked it more carefully than usual, something he'd never felt the need to do before. As he reached for Titan's chain to remove it, he could feel every muscle beneath its thick fur still tense, a sign he knew well. Titan hadn't relaxed because it knew the danger was still out there, lurking in the darkness outside. Derek didn't sleep right away. He sat in the old chair by the window, feeling the quiet of the apartment, but it was far from the usual kind of quiet. It was heavy, unnervingly still, as if tonight was unlike any night before. Titan lay at his feet, but it didn't curl up as it usually did. It stayed still, eyes wide open, ears constantly moving. Near midnight, during a brief stillness between gusts of wind, a loud knock echoed through the door, 3 times, deliberate and purposeful. Derek immediately looked up, a chill running down his spine as if the cold air from outside had rushed in. Titan jumped up, its body shifting from alert to fully defensive, its front legs slightly bent, its posture lowered like a predator ready to pounce. "Who's there?" Derek asked loudly, his voice calm but betraying a hint of tension. The silence stretched longer than necessary, as if the person outside wanted Derek to guess the answer. Then a familiar voice broke the quiet. "Calm down, it's just me." Travis. Derek immediately felt his chest tighten. Titan growled fiercely. No longer the soft warnings from before, but a clear declaration of danger. Without even needing to look, Derek knew Titan had lowered itself even further, prepared for whatever might come. "What do you want?" "Just want to talk. Nothing serious." Derek didn't believe it. He knew exactly what kind of person Travis was. He wasn't the type to knock on doors at midnight just for a chat. Titan took a step forward, breathing steady and deep, its eyes never leaving the door as if it could see through the wood to the person on the other side. "I know you're awake, old friend." Travis' voice came again, slow and deep, tinged with mockery but laced with hidden danger. Derek didn't open the door. His grip tightened on Titan's chain, though he knew that if anything happened, Titan no longer needed anyone to hold it back. "You think I'm some kind of fool? I haven't done anything, just want to clear up a few things." Titan kept growling, but Derek stayed silent. He knew exactly what Travis was playing at. He wanted Derek to say something, to pull him into a conversation, to make him the one on the defensive instead of the one controlling the situation. The silence stretched on. Travis stayed there. Derek didn't need to see him to know he had no intention of leaving right away. Then another sound followed. Footsteps, but not the footsteps of a single person. Derek tilted his head, and Titan tensed even more, its growl now a low hiss, as if waiting for the moment to strike. Outside, Travis let out a quiet laugh, a cold, calculating sound. "I won't do anything, but remember this won't be the last time we meet." Then the footsteps retreated, slowly, but not far. Derek didn't move, didn't respond, just listened carefully. Titan didn't budge an inch, its eyes still fixed on the door, its breathing deep and steady, as if it had been prepared for this moment all along. The footsteps paused for a moment before fading into the darkness. But Derek knew one thing for sure. Travis hadn't really left, and he wasn't the only one who knew it. Titan remained there, its eyes reflecting the dim light of the apartment like two sharp black stones, its chest rising and falling with slow, powerful breaths. The wooden door before them was still shut tight, but one thing was clearer than ever. Tonight wasn't over. Titan remained standing in place, its body tense like a taut string, its eyes fixed directly on the wooden door in front of it. No sound except its steady breathing, but Derek knew that this silence was just part of the game. Travis had moved away from the door, but he hadn't gone far. The feeling lingered in the air, heavy and haunting like an impending storm. Then another sound, not the knock on the door as before, nor the sound of retreating footsteps. This time, it was a slow, heavy scraping, trailing along the wall outside the apartment, as if someone was moving along the edge of the building searching for a weak point, an entry. Derek didn't move right away, but Titan reacted instantly. It whipped its head around, ears standing on alert, its body tense as it focused on the window, and Derek could feel the danger drawing closer. The footsteps continued, heavy but purposeful, as if the person outside no longer cared about hiding their presence. Then another sound, slow, deliberate. Scratch, scratch. A long, cold, scraping sound on the window glass. Titan growled, its roar full of power and finality, no longer a warning, but a true threat. Derek felt the vibration through the leash still in his hand, as though Titan was ready to strike the moment it had a chance. Derek couldn't see, but he knew what was happening. Travis wasn't just trying to scare them. He was testing their limits, seeing how Derek would react, how Titan would react. A loud bang on the window made Derek jump, the sound of the glass vibrating sharply in the deadly silence of the late night. Titan lunged toward the window, barking fiercely, like a hunting wolf that had just discovered an intruder on its territory. Derek didn't wait any longer. He gripped the phone, dialing 911, his heart racing, breath quickening slightly, but his voice still trying to remain calm. "There's someone outside my house. I think they have bad intentions." The operator on the other end quickly responded, her voice professional, though tinged with a hint of tension as she heard Titan still growling in the background. "Where are you located? Can you see anyone?" Derek swallowed hard, keeping the receiver close to his ear while listening intently to the sounds outside. "I can't see them, but my dog has detected someone moving around the apartment. I hear footsteps scraping on the window. They're not knocking like usual. They're being sneaky." There was a brief silence from the other end, as though the operator realized this situation was more serious than a typical disturbance. "Okay, we're dispatching a patrol unit right away. Can you lock the door?" Derek bit his lip, tightening the leash as another set of footsteps sounded closer, right by the window. "The door's locked, but they're still out there. Stay calm, don't open the door or get near the window. The patrol unit will be there in a few minutes." But Derek knew a few minutes might be too long. He could still hear Travis outside, and he suspected he wasn't alone. Maybe he was testing the weaknesses of the apartment or preparing something worse. Titan's eyes never left the door, its growl no longer a mere threat but a promise. If anyone stepped inside, it would strike without hesitation. Outside, another sound, the scrape of metal against metal, as if someone was trying to pry open the window. Derek gripped the phone tighter, his voice low but clear. "They're trying to pry open the window." The operator on the other end took a deep breath, her voice more urgent. "The police are near your area. They'll be there soon. Stay inside. If possible, find something to defend yourself with." Derek didn't need to be reminded. He reached slowly for the metal rod by the door, Not the sharpest weapon, but enough to defend himself. Titan stood like a living wall, ready to use its body to protect Derek from anyone daring to cross the threshold. Outside, the footsteps quickened, then suddenly stopped. 1 second, 2 seconds, then the sound of sirens filled the night. Without waiting, Derek heard hurried footsteps retreating, shoes hitting the ground, the roar of a motorcycle engine starting up swiftly before the intruders vanished into the night. Titan didn't relax immediately. Its eyes remained fixed on the window, as though it could see through the darkness to where the enemy was hiding. Derek exhaled deeply, but he didn't loosen the leash on Titan. He knew, despite the police arriving, despite the intruders fleeing, this wasn't over. Because people like Travis never accept defeat easily, the sound of a police siren echoed through the night, causing those outside to briefly hesitate. But Derek didn't allow himself to relax, nor did Titan. The dog remained poised for an attack, its eyes never leaving the window, its ears pricked to catch every movement, no matter how small, outside. The apartment fell into a suspicious, tense silence. Then, suddenly, a powerful kick, like a hammer strike, slammed into the front door. Bang! The impact made the whole door shake violently. Derek flinched and took a step back, but Titan did not waver. In a split second, it charged forward, positioning itself between Derek and the door, growling louder than ever. A hoarse and angry voice rang out from outside. "Damn, this door is tougher than I thought." Derek gritted his teeth. He knew exactly who that voice belonged to. Travis was back, and this time, he wasn't playing the threatening game anymore. Without waiting, a second kick came, even stronger than the first. This time, the door's hinges shook, then suddenly snapped off, sending the door flying inward with enough force to slam against the wall, creating a loud bang. And at that moment, Travis and Jake charged in without hesitation. But they didn't expect this. Titan was ready. Without a second of delay, Titan lunged straight at Travis, its sharp white teeth bared, eyes filled with the fury of a warrior trained to kill. A sharp, ear-piercing scream split the air as Titan leaped, launching itself forward at a terrifying speed. Travis, no matter how aggressive and reckless he was, couldn't react in time to an animal trained to take down opponents in mere seconds. He instinctively staggered backward, trying to raise his arms to defend himself. But Titan didn't go for his arms. It targeted his lower body and bit down hard on Travis's leg, delivering a precise, painful blow that made him scream in agony. "Arrgh!" Travis staggered, nearly falling, while Titan held on, its teeth clamped onto his leg, applying just enough pressure to cause intense pain without causing serious injury. It was controlling him, not killing him, because this wasn't the first time Titan had faced an enemy. Jake drew a small knife from his pocket, planning to rush forward to help, but Derek sensed his movement. Even though he couldn't see, Derek could hear the sounds, the footsteps, the rustling of fabric as someone moved hurriedly, and he could estimate Jake's position. And he was ready. Whoosh! The metal rod in Derek's hand swung in a perfect arc, striking Jake's wrist just as he raised the knife. "Thud!" Jake screamed, and the knife fell to the floor with a clatter. He stepped back, clutching his sore wrist, eyes wide in disbelief at how a blind man could land such a precise blow. "Bastard!" he snarled, about to rush again, but Titan had already turned, abandoning Travis, who was writhing in pain on the floor, and immediately faced Jake. Its eyes glowed in the dim apartment light, filled with bloodlust, and its breath came out in heavy huffs like a wolf preparing to finish off its prey. Jake instinctively stepped back, no longer underestimating the dog. Travis, though in agony, still had madness in his eyes. He struggled to push himself up, pulling something small and metal from his pocket, a gun. But before he could raise it, Titan lunged again, this time targeting his arm, sinking its teeth into him without mercy. The sound of metal hitting the floor echoed. The gun slipped from Travis's hand, tumbling into the corner of the room. Derek, sensing every movement through sound, the footsteps, the heavy breathing of the enemies, Titan's growling, knew they were losing control. They had misjudged the situation. Jake, realizing they no longer had the upper hand, began retreating toward the door, his eyes fixed on Titan with genuine fear. "Travis, let's go." His voice was frantic, clearly not wanting to continue the fight. But Travis wasn't going to give up that easily. He thrashed desperately, but Titan wouldn't let go, keeping him pinned to the floor, preventing any chance of retaliation. The sound of a police siren suddenly blared outside the apartment, red and blue lights flashing through the window. Travis knew his chance was over. He kicked Titan away, breaking free from its grip, staggered to his feet, and turned to run before Titan could attack again. Jake followed closely behind, and in just a few seconds both disappeared into the night. Titan remained on guard, not chasing them, knowing they had no way out. Just a few seconds later, the police burst into the apartment, flashlights sweeping across the room. An officer approached Derek, noticing the broken door, the signs of chaos on the floor, and Titan still growling softly, as if reluctant to let go of its fury. "Are you all right?" the officer asked, his tone serious but also impressed by the sight of Titan standing tall, protecting its owner like a guardian. Derek took a deep breath, gently placing his hand on Titan, feeling its strong, steady breathing. "I'm fine," he replied calmly, but with certainty. "But I think you'll want to arrest the two who just ran out of here." The officer looked at Titan, then at Derek, before signaling to his team to pursue. Derek didn't need to look to know the situation wasn't over, but this time, Travis had made the biggest mistake. He had underestimated Titan, and that would be the last mistake Travis ever made. The police siren echoed in the distance, but Travis could no longer hear anything. His mind was consumed only by the searing pain as Titan's sharp fangs sank deep into his arm. He screamed, writhing and struggling to escape, but Titan did not loosen its grip. On the contrary, its hold grew tighter. The dog didn't just bite, it jerked violently, throwing Travis off balance. He staggered a few steps and then collapsed onto the cold tiled floor with a loud thud. Jake, witnessing the entire scene, turned pale. He immediately pulled out a small knife from his pocket, its blade reflecting the flashing lights from outside the window. But he hesitated. How could he strike when a dog was sinking its teeth into his ally like that? Titan didn't let go of Travis. Its breath was quick and purposeful, its eyes burning with pure instinct to fight. Its body pressed heavily against Travis, its muscles hard as steel, ensuring that if he dared to resist, he would pay the price instantly. Derek, though unable to see what was happening, could hear everything. The heavy breathing of Travis, Titan's growls, the sound of fabric stretching tight under the biting force, and Jake's hesitation to act. Derek took a step back, using the chaos to locate each person in the room. Titan might have Travis under control, but Jake was still a threat that had not been neutralized. Then, Titan pulled hard. Travis screamed again as his arm was twisted at an unnatural angle, pain so intense that he could barely move. Jake panicked. He tightened his grip on the knife, summoned all his courage, and lunged at Titan, stabbing quickly. But Titan didn't stay passive. It sensed the movement from behind, and in an instant, it released Travis, quickly darting to the side. Jake's knife swiped through the air, missing Titan and striking the cold tile with a sharp, hopeless sound. Titan didn't give Jake a second chance. It spun around in a flash, leaping at Jake and slamming him backward with a powerful force, causing him to crash into the wall with a heavy thud. Derek only heard the crash, Jake's painful gasp, and Titan's continued growling with authority. "Damn it!" Travis screamed, trying to get up, but Titan immediately turned and let out a low growl that froze him in place. Jake was truly terrified now. He realized neither of them could win. A blind man and a dog, what he thought would be an easy game, had turned into a nightmare he couldn't escape. Titan's gaze never left them, as if reading every small movement, waiting for the slightest opening to land the final blow. Despite the excruciating pain from the bite, Travis's pride wouldn't allow him to give up easily. He lifted one hand, intending to grab the gun that had fallen on the floor. But Derek had already noticed this. Though blind, he could still pinpoint the location of the gun, guided by the sound of Titan's claws scratching the floor nearby. In a swift and decisive move, Derek swung his stick down, knocking the gun out of Travis's reach before he could touch it. "You think I'm messing with you?" Travis hissed, desperately watching the gun slide away toward the doorway. But he no longer had a chance to do anything. The police siren blared outside again. Both Travis and Jake froze. They knew it was over. Titan still didn't take its eyes off them, but now, instead of snarling fiercely, it just stood there, its cold, sharp eyes and ready posture, reminding them that if they made any move, it would strike immediately. "Travis, let's go," Jake panted, nodding toward the open window. Travis gritted his teeth, his eyes burning with anger, but he knew there was no other choice. He shouted a curse before both of them rushed toward the window, jumping out into the darkness. Titan was about to chase after them, but Derek softly said, "Titan, stop." The dog immediately halted, but its eyes remained fixed on the window, as though still unwilling to accept that the fight was over. A moment later, the front door swung open, a flashlight beam shone in, and a group of armed police officers stormed in immediately. "Drop your weapons! Raise your hands!" But all they saw was Derek standing there, Titan beside him, in an apartment wrecked by signs of a brutal struggle. One officer stepped forward, quickly assessing the situation, then turned to Derek with an impressed look. "Are you all right?" Derek took a deep breath, feeling Titan's powerful presence beside him, and nodded slightly. "I'm fine." He knelt down and gently stroked Titan's head, feeling the thick, soft fur and the warrior's breath still heavy, yet strong, as the dog had protected its master at all costs. Titan remained tense, but upon hearing Derek's voice, it slowly relaxed, its eyes still alert but no longer filled with the same ferocity. The officer studied Titan for a long moment, then shook his head and let out a sigh, a mixture of relief and awe. "I've never seen a dog like that." Derek smiled faintly, his hand still resting on Titan's back. "Neither have I." Titan wasn't just a dog, it was a warrior, a guardian, a loyal friend, and it had just proven that men like Travis could never touch Derek, not ever. The police siren screamed right outside the apartment door, its red and blue lights flashing through the window, illuminating the room that had been engulfed in tense suffocation. Titan was still in a combat stance, its teeth clenched tightly around Travis's arm, showing no signs of letting go. Outside, the clear, commanding voice of the police rang out, the sound of heavy boots hitting the floor as armed officers stormed the hallway, guns ready, their sharp eyes scanning every dark corner of the room. "Police! Drop your weapons now! Get down on the ground!" Upon hearing the shout, Ryan, the last of Travis's accomplices, realized that everything had spiraled out of control. He didn't hesitate for a second, turning and running toward the back door, hoping to escape. "Block him!" a police officer yelled. But it was too late. Ryan had vanished into the darkness, leaving Jake and Travis trapped in their own mistakes. Jake didn't resist. He raised his hands, his eyes still wide with fear, as he watched Titan subdue Travis completely. Cold sweat poured from his forehead. He knew that if the police hadn't arrived in time, Titan might not have spared Travis. Travis wasn't easily subdued. He continued to scream, thrashing and struggling, but Titan remained unwavering. The dog's body pressed firmly against him, breathing evenly but strongly like a true warrior, not allowing any enemy to rise without its master's command. One of the officers stepped forward, observing the situation with astonishment and a hint of admiration. Derek placed his hand on Titan's head, his voice calm and firm. "Titan, let go." Titan didn't immediately release its grip. It kept staring at Travis, its gaze sharp as a knife, ears perked up as if considering whether this person still posed a threat. "Titan," Derek repeated with resolve. The dog shivered slightly and finally, it slowly released its jaws, stepping back a step but never taking its eyes off Travis, ready to pounce if he made any move. Travis screamed in pain. He clutched his arm where Titan had bitten, blood seeping from the deep tooth marks, rage and hatred burning in his eyes. "That dog! It's insane!" he gasped, his face pale with pain and fury. An officer stepped closer, kneeling down to inspect Titan before raising his eyes to Travis with a cold, indifferent look. "No, it's just doing its job." He didn't say more, only signaling to his teammates, the sound of handcuffs clicking. Travis was pressed face first to the floor, his hands shackled behind him, leaving him no chance to resist. He gritted his teeth, glaring at Titan with absolute hatred, but Titan simply stood there, calm and unbothered, as if it didn't need to show any triumph. For it, this was just another job done. Jake was also subdued shortly after, though he didn't resist. He only lowered his head, accepting his fate. The officers quickly swept the area, looking for any trace of Ryan, but found nothing except hurried footsteps fading into the dark alley. One officer approached Derek, his voice a mixture of curiosity and admiration. "Are you all right?" Derek took a deep breath, his hand still gently resting on Titan's back, feeling its steady and strong breaths. "I'm fine, but Titan saved me." The officer looked at the dog for a long moment before slowly nodding. "It's not a regular dog, is it?" Derek smiled faintly, gently stroking Titan's thick fur. "Number. It's a warrior." Despite still being in pain, Travis's eyes burned with fury. He turned his head, glancing at Derek as if trying to memorize his face, wanting to engrave this moment into his mind. He had once thought this was just a game, that he could intimidate and subjugate a blind man to satisfy his twisted ego. But now he understood one thing clearly. He had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had underestimated Derek, and worse, he had underestimated Titan. And Titan was not an ordinary dog. It wasn't afraid, it didn't back down, it didn't waver. It had completely brought him down, made him feel real fear, hunted by something stronger. Titan had taught him something. Derek was never alone. An officer pulled him to his feet, his voice cold. "Travis Miller, you're under arrest for unlawful entry, endangering lives and resisting arrest." Travis had no choice but to lower his head, his fists clenched tightly as he felt the cold cuffs around his wrists. He knew this was the end. He had lost. As the sound of the police car faded away, taking Travis and Jake with it, Titan finally relaxed. Derek felt the dog's body loosen, its breath slowing, but it still remained in a state of vigilance until the very last moment. He sat down, gently petting its head. "You did great, Titan. Very good." Titan didn't react right away, but then its tail gently wagged, as if signaling that it too knew everything had ended. Derek looked up, taking a deep breath, feeling the rare calmness in the air. This time, he knew Ryan wouldn't be coming back, because Titan had taught Travis a lesson he would never forget. Not long after the police subdued Travis and his accomplices, Derek's apartment was surrounded by flashing red and blue lights, reflecting cold beams of justice on the glass windows. Officers carefully collected evidence, inspecting the signs of forced entry on the windows and doors, while another officer was taking a statement from Derek. As Derek answered each question, Titan remained alert by his side, its sharp eyes never leaving the door, as if it knew the danger had not completely passed. An officer returned from the patrol car, exchanged words with his superior, and then walked toward Derek, his voice low and serious. "We've checked the records. Travis Miller and his accomplices all have criminal backgrounds. He's a member of a biker gang involved in criminal activities, including theft, assault, and vandalism." Derek tilted his head slightly, not surprised. "I guess this isn't the first time he's done something like this." "Not at all." The officer nodded. "But this time, he's made a serious mistake." Derek furrowed his brow, waiting for the explanation. The officer continued, his tone firmer now. "With the evidence we have, the video from the people at the cafe, the injuries on your body, the witness testimonies, along with the illegal break-in and the attack right inside your home, this won't just be a minor charge. Travis could be facing many years in prison." For the first time that evening, Derek felt he could breathe a little easier. He wasn't someone who liked to see others harmed, but Travis was not someone who could be easily forgiven. If he hadn't been caught, if Titan hadn't been there, tonight could have ended very differently. He nodded slowly. "Good." The officer fell silent for a moment, then looked down at Titan, who remained in its alert stance, as if still not entirely convinced the danger was over. "Your dog, it saved you, not just once." Derek smiled faintly, and bent down to gently stroke Titan's thick fur. "He's not just a dog, he's a warrior." Titan didn't take its eyes off the door, but when it felt Derek's hand on it, the dog relaxed, as if shaking off the remaining tension, finally lying down at its owner's feet. The officer smiled softly, though there was still a trace of curiosity in his voice. "He used to be a canine, right?" Derek nodded slightly, still caressing Titan with respect. "Yes, one of the best." The officer looked at Titan for a long moment, clearly impressed. "I've seen a lot of working dogs, but I've never seen one react as quickly and decisively as him." Derek smiled lightly, but didn't say anything more. He knew Titan was unlike any other dog. It had been trained to detect danger, to handle situations in an instant, and most importantly, it always placed its owner's life above all else. Another officer entered, holding an evidence bag containing the gun Travis had dropped. "This is his gun," the officer said seriously, looking at Derek. "If your dog hadn't stopped him, you might not be standing here talking." Derek didn't say anything, just tightened Titan's leash a little. He understood better than anyone what that meant. Without Titan, he wouldn't be alive in this moment. Travis and Jake were shoved into the police car, their hands tightly cuffed, their faces pale from defeat. Travis still squinted with rage, but this time there was no arrogance in his gaze. He knew what had happened. He had been defeated. He hadn't lost to the police. He lost to Titan, a dog. Someone like Travis would never have thought a dog could bring him to his knees, but Titan was no ordinary dog. It wasn't afraid of him, not of the roaring engines, not of the threats or punches. It only had one mission: to protect Derek, and it had fulfilled that mission absolutely. The officer in the front seat of the patrol car glanced at Travis through the rearview mirror and coldly said, "You think you're the predator, but you just got turned into prey by your own victim. Think about that while you're in jail." Travis didn't respond. He just gritted his teeth, his eyes locking onto Titan for one last time, as if trying to remember the image of this dog forever. The police car sped off into the night, carrying Travis and his accomplices, leaving behind a street that had finally returned to its quiet state. Derek closed the apartment door, locking it carefully, but this time there was no feeling of fear. He knew that even if the police hadn't arrived in time, Titan wouldn't let anyone harm him. He sat down in a chair, feeling Titan's slow and steady breathing, the dog finally allowing itself to relax after a long, tense night. Derek reached out and stroked its thick fur, smiling faintly. "You did well, Titan." Titan didn't respond, but its tail wagged lightly, as if it understood it had completed its mission. Finally, it lay down at Derek's feet, resting its head on its front paws, eyes half closed, but still not fully asleep, remaining vigilant, like a loyal guardian who never left its post. Outside the window, the sound of sirens slowly faded, returning the neighborhood to its natural peace. Tonight, Derek had won, but he knew he didn't win alone. He won because he had Titan, his friend, his protector, and his second pair of eyes in the dark. The morning sunlight filtered through the window, illuminating every corner of the small apartment. The gentle rays banished the remnants of last night's darkness, replacing the heavy atmosphere with a rare sense of peace. Derek woke up earlier than usual, but this time not out of anxiety or alertness. He sensed a lightness in the air, something he hadn't felt in a long time, a true peace. He sat up from the couch where he had fallen asleep the night before. His body was a little tired, but not from stress. It was from having fought to the very end. Titan was still sitting there, right by his feet, its posture confident and firm like a guardian watching over its castle. Though its eyes were now softer, no longer filled with the extreme alertness from the night before, there remained the pride and dignity of a warrior who had completed its mission. Derek took a deep breath, feeling the morning breeze gently come through the window. The smell of coffee from the cafe across the street filled the small street, mingling with the faint scent of jasmine from the garden next door. Everything continued as usual. Life went on. But the difference today was that he was safe, and Travis could no longer threaten him. He smiled slightly, leaned down, and placed his hand on Titan's back, feeling its steady and calm breathing. "We made it, buddy." Titan subtly twitched its ears, as if it understood every word Derek said. It lifted its head to look at him, its brown eyes shining a little under the morning sun. Then it wagged its tail lightly, not too strongly, not too excitedly, just a small but meaningful gesture. A sign of agreement, an acknowledgement that it was all over. No more Travis. No more threatening footsteps outside the window. No more lurking dangers whenever he stepped outside. Just Derek, Titan, and a new morning, beginning like any other day before. Derek stood up and made his way to the small kitchen to brew a cup of coffee. He might not have been able to see, but every movement had been memorized in his mind long ago. He poured water into the kettle, listening to the bubbling sound, the warm aroma spreading throughout the space. Titan quietly watched, its eyes still holding a rare calm. Even though everything had ended, its protective instincts had never faded. Derek understood that. It may no longer growl or be tense, but deep down, Titan would never forget what had happened. It would always be on guard, always keeping a watchful eye on everything, ensuring no one could ever harm Derek again. And Derek, too, would never forget. He could return to his daily life, to coffee-filled mornings and strolls with Titan at his side, but he would no longer be the same person. He had fought for his own safety, stood firm in the face of fear, and learned an important lesson. He was never alone, and he would never let himself be anyone's prey again. Because Titan would always be with him, and Titan would never allow that to happen. When the coffee was ready, Derek took the steaming mug in his hand and stepped toward the front door. He opened the door, feeling the fresh air of a new day, standing there, breathing deeply, enjoying the sensation of no longer having the shadow of fear looming behind him. Titan followed him, sitting quietly beside the door, silently watching the people passing by on the street. Everything seemed normal, but Derek knew everything had changed forever. Travis was now just a defeated man, a ghost from the past that Titan had ended with its sharp teeth and unwavering loyalty. Derek took a small sip of his coffee, feeling the bitterness spread across his tongue, then gently stroked Titan's head. "It's over, but we will keep moving forward." Titan didn't respond, but its tail wagged lightly, as if agreeing with that statement. Because for Titan, protection never stops. Even if Travis is gone, even if life returns to normal, Titan will always be Derek's eyes in the dark, his steadfast protector, and the only loyal friend he can trust for life. Because that is its mission, and it has never failed in its mission. News about the arrest of Travis Miller and his accomplices quickly spread throughout Glendale. He was charged with numerous crimes, ranging from trespassing, assault, and threatening life to illegal possession of weapons. With his extensive criminal record, the sentence for Travis was not just a few months in prison, it was many years behind bars, where he would no longer have freedom, nor any chance to return to being a predator. And this time, he knew he had lost completely. Derek did not attend the trial, but he didn't need to. He didn't need to look at Travis one more time to know that this nightmare had ended. No more footsteps creeping outside the window, no more threatening voices in the dark of the night, no more shadow of an enemy lurking somewhere out there. Because Titan had ended it all. After the incident, Titan was no longer just an ordinary dog in the eyes of the neighbors. When Derek walked Titan down the small street they had passed every day, people started noticing them more. The coffee shop owner, where everything had begun, smiled when he saw Titan. Some customers stopped to compliment them, and even someone bought a bag of dog treats and placed it in front of Titan. A small reward for the hero who had courageously protected his owner. "You're lucky to have a dog like that," a familiar voice spoke. Derek stopped for a moment and turned toward the woman with the brown hair tied up. She was the one who had stood up to defend him at the coffee shop that day. She looked at Titan with genuine admiration, then gently bent down and reached out as if wanting to touch him. Titan watched her for a moment, then gently moved closer to Derek, not reacting immediately. Derek smiled softly and placed his hand on Titan's back. "He's not an ordinary dog," he said, his voice calm yet meaningful. The woman nodded, understanding that Titan wasn't the type of dog that would be comfortable with everyone. He wasn't a carefree pet, but a warrior. Derek continued his daily life as if nothing had changed. He still had his morning coffee at the familiar corner, still walked down familiar streets, still let Titan lead the way, still allowed the gentle wind to sweep through emotions once buried by fear. But one thing had changed forever. He knew he was no longer alone. He knew that no matter how deep the darkness, there would always be a light guiding him. That light was Titan. Titan still sat there, right beside him, its eyes always alert and calm, observing the world with the sharpness and intelligence of a true warrior. It didn't fully relax because it knew its mission was never finished. Because Titan was not just a dog, it was a guardian. It was a loyal friend. It was Derek's eyes in the dark. And it would never leave its post. Never. Derek and Titan's story was not just a fight against evil, but also a testament to the power of loyalty, bravery, and the unbreakable bond between humans and dogs. Titan was not just a guide dog. It was a true warrior, a loyal friend, a guardian who always watched over and protected its owner from all dangers. What do you think of Titan's intelligence and loyalty? If you were in Derek's shoes, would you trust your four-legged friend completely? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share it so more people can learn about it, and subscribe to the channel to not miss the next exciting stories. Hit the notification bell to stay updated with the latest videos. Thank you for watching. See you in the next stories.